Hello students, so we are back to our chapter, that is chemical science and physical science. So in our previous classes what we saw? We saw about chemical science, yes, and the properties of chemical science. And to understand the properties of chemical science, we also considered different reactions, different examples, okay? And from those examples we made some conclusions, yes, and those conclusions, from those conclusions we could write the properties of chemical change, yes. So in every example that we considered in our previous class, what we saw that every example which was of chemical change, we could write a chemical reaction for those change, yes. So that means in every example we saw that there is a chemical reaction taking place, okay. So that means from that we can say that when there is a chemical change, always there will be a chemical reaction taking place, okay. So a chemical change cannot occur without a chemical reaction. So this is a very important point that we have to remember to know what are the importance of chemical change, okay. So today we will be starting our class by knowing the importance of chemical change. So importance of chemical change, and the first importance of chemical change comes in case of metals. So all and every metal, okay, that you see around yourself, so all those metals are obtained from ores, okay, and from those ores we get the metal after different chemical reactions is done. From those done where those ores are used, okay. That means those ores, we get the ores and those ores are passed through different chemical reaction, and after that, after many chemical reaction, we will get metals, okay. So now you all will be confused, yes, because you will be thinking that sir has introduced a new term, that is ores. So what actually ore is? So I have already given you the definition of ore. So what ores is? Ores are nothing but they are the crude raw material. That means ekdam raw materials from which we can get the metal, okay. So metals are present on our earth surface, yes, most of the metals are present on our earth surface, okay, and they are present somewhere between the rocks, somewhere beneath the surface of the earth, okay. So there those metals will be present as a raw material, okay, and these metals will be mixed with other chemicals or other substances as well, okay. So those things together from which we can extract the metal, those things together are known as ores, okay, and every metal has different kinds of ores, okay. So for example, if you consider petrol, we get petrol from petroleum, and petroleum refers to the crude oil, okay. So black color crude oil, so that crude oil is the, what we can say, raw material from where we can get petrol. So similarly, so there are some such raw materials from where we can get the metals, and those raw materials from where we can get metals are known as ores, okay. And those ores contains a higher amount of specific type of metals. So when these ores are passed through different chemical reaction, finally after long chemical reaction and many chemical reaction one after the another, we will get the metal, okay. So this is the first importance of chemical reaction. Now second importance is that all the medicines that we generally use except the Ayurvedic one, so most of the medicines that we generally use are made by chemical reactions, okay. So if you look at the medicines carefully and if you look at the composition, so we will get different chemical name. Why it is so? Because they are chemical substances which are produced by some chemical reactions, okay. So all medicines are chemical substances, okay. Next, plastics. So you all know that all plastics are made out of some chemical reaction, okay. And all the materials that are used in construction, that is for making building, for making houses, for making bridges, all those materials are also obtained from different chemical reaction, yes. For example, cement, okay. So cement contains what? It contains calcium carbonate, okay, and calcium oxide also. Okay, so similarly, if you look on the steel, so steel contains iron and mixture of what we know as carbon, and then we also use their chromium, nickel. All these metals are together used to make steel from iron. Okay, so such different materials that are used for construction purposes, these are also obtained from chemical reaction. So from these 4 points, what we have seen that all the materials, most of the materials which are artificially made, okay, or are not naturally obtained, all those materials which are not naturally obtained are generally made up from chemical reaction. Okay, so all these materials are made up by using some chemical reaction. Okay, so that is why chemical change is very important. Why? Because most of the materials that are human made, okay, which are not naturally obtained, are due to a chemical reaction. Okay, and some of the natural processes are also due to chemical reaction. For example, photosynthesis, it is a natural process and it is a chemical change. Yes, for example, respiration. What is respiration? That is, we are eating food and we are digesting it. That is also a chemical process or chemical change. Okay, so that is why chemical change or chemical reaction is very important. Okay, so now we are looking at one of the most common chemical changes that we can observe in our day-to-day life, that is rusting of iron. Yes, so we all see rusting of iron. So iron, generally it get rusted. Yes, so this thing you can always observe in your home. Yes, so if you have any iron object, that is any object made up of iron, if you keep it in open, after few days, few months, you will see that a brown color powder has been formed on the surface of it. Yes, the color has changed. It is due to rusting. Okay, so here I have shown you that there are some nails. Okay, so that are directly new nails. Okay, new nails means they are made and you have brought those nails from the market. Okay, so they are completely new. Okay, and after some days you will see that some brown color powder like substances are found on the surface of the nail, and those brown color powder like substances are known as rust. Okay, so I have shown you in this picture. So the brown powder like substances that is present on the surface of the nail, these are known as rust. Okay, and the chemical change in which iron changes into rust means the chemical change where this rust are produced from iron, this process is known as rusting. Okay, so what is rusting? Rusting is the chemical change or chemical process in which the rust is produced in iron objects. Okay, so why rust is produced? Rust is produced because when iron comes in contact with water and oxygen togetherly. Okay, so at the same time water and oxygen both should come in contact with iron. Okay, and then there will be a chemical reaction between iron, oxygen and water, and that will lead to formation of rust. Okay, so when we leave iron in open, so what happens? We have air. Yes, in air, this small bubble like thing you see here, so these are water vapor. Okay, so these are what water vapor in air are also known as moisture. Okay, so that means if air contains water, we say that air is moist. Okay, so moist air means the amount of water vapor is higher in the air. Okay, so that means we know that in air we already contain water vapor. Yes, and air also contains oxygen. Okay, so when we keep the iron nail in open, so what happens? This iron nail come with contact with the oxygen in air. It also come in contact with the water vapor that is present in air. So that means it is getting both oxygen and water to react, and iron is already present in this nail. So what happens when we keep the iron, any iron object in open for many days? What we will see that oxygen and water vapor that is present in the air, it will react and it will form rust, and this process is known as rusting. Okay, so what is the chemical reaction behind rusting? Because this is a chemical sense, and every chemical sense there will be a chemical reaction. Okay, so here what happens, that the iron that will be represented by Fe, yes, iron is reacting with oxygen which is present in air, and water that is also present as water vapor in air to give rust. So this is the formula of rust. Okay, so you might be confused why I have written 4 3 or here X and here also X, here 2. This is because when you will balance the chemical reaction or chemical equation, when you balance the chemical equation, so these are some coefficients. Okay, so you need not worry about this, you will get to know this in your higher classes. So these are the numbers, these numbers are used to balance a chemical equation. Okay, so in short you can say that 4 atoms of iron is reacting with 3 molecules of oxygen and X number of water molecule to give 2 rust molecule. Okay, so this is the chemical reaction. Here what happened, the iron which is present in the nail, it reacts with oxygen which is present in air, and water, I have written X over water because we cannot predict the number of water molecules that are reacting. Okay, so X represent the number of water molecule that will react. Okay, so X may be 1, X may be 2, X may be 3. Okay, so it depends upon the condition. Okay, so these will react, that is iron, oxygen and water will react at the same time to give, this is the chemical formula of rust, Fe2O3.XH2O. so if here X is 1, if here X will be, if here X will be 1, here also X will be 1. Okay, if here X is 2, here also it will be 2. So this is the chemical reaction, and this is also given in your book, you can have a look on it. So this is the chemical reaction. So you need not worry then why 2 is coming, 4 is coming, 3 is coming, or X is been written here. This is beyond the scope of your book at class 7, so you'll be knowing about it more in your higher classes, as I have already told. Okay, so here I have written 2 conditions. Okay, so I have given you 2 conditions here. What are the condition? That rusting will take place only when iron comes in contact with moist air. Why moist air? Because in moist air we also have water as well as oxygen. So for rusting, iron should get both water and oxygen at the same time. Okay, if only air, see at the second, look at the second condition, that is if only air or water reacts with iron, then rusting will not take place. Why? Because if only air will react without water, that means the iron will react with only oxygen, so it will not form rust, it will give a different product. Okay, and generally it does not react. So similarly, if it reacts with only water, it will give no rust. Okay, so for rusting it is necessary that it reacts with moist air. Why moist air? That is the iron should come in contact with moist air, because moist air will contain both water as well as oxygen. Okay, so this is a very important condition, you have to remember it. Okay, next, so rusting is not very good for us, because if rusting occurs, so that means what happens, the rust is produced from the iron object. So rusting gradually it reduces the strength of iron object. Okay, so due to rusting, the strength of any iron made object will reduce, and if rusting is occurring for a long period of time, finally we will see that at one moment of time the iron objects will become so weak that it might break. Okay, so you will see that if you have tin, okay, so tin sheets that are generally used in our to make houses, so what you will see that when these tin sheets get older, more and more rust form on it, and at a moment of time what you will see, there are some holes that are created on those tin sheets, and this is because of formation of rust. Okay, so rusting of iron is not very beneficial for us. Okay, so you want that the rusting of iron should be prevented. Okay, why it should be prevented? Because it reduces the strength of iron made object. Okay, so what can be done to prevent rusting? So to prevent rusting, what we have to do? We have to make sure that reaction between iron, oxygen and water does not occur. So to stop the reaction between iron, water and oxygen, what we have to do? We have to prevent water and oxygen in coming in contact with iron objects. That is, the iron object should not come in contact with the water or oxygen. That is, the iron surface, the surface of the object which is made up of iron should not come in contact with water or oxygen at the same time. Okay, so there are 4 methods by which we can do this. That is, we can prevent the moisture or water and oxygen to come in contact with the iron surface. So the first is oiling and greasing. So oiling and greasing means applying oil or applying grease. So what is grease? So grease are some wax like thing, so which is very slippery, due to which you will feel a very slippery oil like touch. Okay, so those oily substances are known as grease. So oiling and greasing means putting oil or grease in the surface of an iron made substance. Okay, suppose nail, if you put oil on those nail, so that is what oiling means. Okay, so what oiling and greasing will do? When you oil or you grease any iron made substance, so the surface of the substance will now have a layer of oil on it. Yes, so the surface of the substance, there you have applied oil and grease. So now above the surface, that is the iron surface, there will be a layer of oil. So suppose this is the iron surface. So once you have applied oil, okay, so once you have applied oil, so there will be a surface of oil. Now I am representing here, the red is an iron surface and the blue line that represents the oil. Okay, so now suppose the moisture is coming and trying to make contact with the iron surface, but what happens, since there is a layer of oil between the iron surface and the moisture, so water and oxygen cannot directly react with the iron. Okay, so it cannot directly touch the iron surface because there will be a layer of this blue color layer of oil present in between, and due to which rusting cannot occur. Okay, so this is a very simple thing. Okay, so that is why you will see that if sometimes if you visit any garage or if any iron made object, if you give it to a mechanic to repair it, you will see that after cleaning those things they will apply some machine oils. Why? Because it will prevent rusting. Okay, so this is the first way. Second is by painting. Yes, so what we see, that the gates or grills that you use in your home, what happens, that when you buy it, after that what do you do, you clean it, and after that you put a red color paint on those grills or gate, okay, that you use in your home. Why? Because those red color paint, okay, so those paint, what they do, they will also similar to the oiling and greasing, they will also create a layer in between the surface of the iron made object and moisture. Okay, so there will be a surface of paint between the moisture and the iron, so due to which air and oxygen and water cannot come in contact with the iron. Okay, so the third process that is very important, it is known as coating with other metals, and the main principle here is galvanization. Okay, so what happens, that rusting only takes place with iron. Okay, so this red color rusting that we see, it occurs only with iron, but some metals like zinc, nickel and chromium, okay, they do not directly react with water and oxygen that is present in air. Okay, but you have to remember that some metals like copper, okay, so they also react with the moist air. Okay, so that is the water and air present in air. So you have to know what are the metals that do not react with moist air. So these are zinc, nickel, chromium. So these are the metals, these are some metals that do not directly react with the water and oxygen that is present in moist air. Okay, so what is done in, if a layer of this metal can be put on the surface of this iron made metal, that means on the surface of an iron made metal you will put an extra layer of other metal, that is of zinc, of nickel, of chromium, or of chromium. Okay, so that means similar to the oiling process, if this is an iron made object, suppose this is a rod, okay, iron rod. Okay, so now what we will do, we will put a layer of other metal. Okay, suppose I am putting here a layer of zinc. Okay, now I have put the blue layer of zinc. Okay, and the red is an iron made object. Okay, so now similar to the oiling process, if water and air will try to reach the iron, then they will first come in contact with the zinc, and zinc will not react with water and oxygen. So due to this they cannot reach the iron. Okay, and due to this there will be no rusting, because the iron will be protected inside and the outer layer will be of metals like zinc, nickel and chromium. Okay, so by this you can prevent rusting. So this is what we have done, we have put a coat, that means we have done coating of the iron with some other metals, that is zinc, nickel and chromium. Okay, so that is why you see that when things like bridges, then light lamp post, and what you can say car, all those which are made up of tin or iron, you will see that you will see that there is a white shiny layer. Okay, or you will see a shiny layer. So this shiny layer is because a layer of zinc, okay, or chromium or nickel is applied on the outer surface of those objects, because those objects are made up of iron, so there is a chance of rusting. So to prevent the rusting, what is done, a layer of other metal like zinc, chromium or nickel is put, so that rusting does not takes place. Okay, so when an iron object is put in a molten zinc, so how rusting, how this process is done, that is they first melt the other metal, that is suppose here we are considering zinc, so they will melt the zinc, and on the melted zinc, so molten zinc is now a liquid, so what they will do, they will put the iron object inside those molten zinc. Okay, so what will happen, the zinc will come in contact with the iron surface, that is the iron surface will be covered with zinc layer now. Yes, so when you will dry it, once you have dipped it in the zinc solution, the molten zinc, and then you have taken out and you have dried, so after you have dried it, you will see that there is an outer layer of zinc on the iron made object. Okay, so here you look in this car. Okay, so this car is made up of steel. Okay, so in steel we have iron, so to prevent this iron from rusting, what is done, so this white color substance is molten chromium. Okay, so this here it is, we have molten chromium. Okay, so this car is put in the molten chromium, and when it will be put in the, this is the frame of the car, that will be put in the molten chromium, and once it is put, and after that it will be dried, then we will see a white or silver type shiny surface, and this shiny surface is because of the outer layer of this car frame is now covered with a layer of chromium. So this layer of chromium will prevent the iron from rusting. Okay, so this process is called galvanization. Okay, and the layer which is the iron layer which is galvanized, iron layer on which a zinc coating is given, so those layers are known as galvanized layer or galvanized sheet. Okay, so this is what galvanization means. So galvanization means if an extra coating of zinc like metal will be put on an iron surface which will prevent it from rusting, this process is known as galvanization. Okay, and the next thing, now we see that, now we are seeing that iron objects are reducing, and we are seeing that mainly stainless steel made objects are used. So what are stainless steel? Stainless steel are nothing but they are alloy which are made up of iron, and this iron is molten, that is they are melted, and this melted iron is mixed with carbon, chromium and nickel. So we already know that carbon, there are no rusting occur in carbon, no rusting occur in chromium and no rusting occur in nickel. So iron is mixed with carbon, chromium and nickel to prevent rusting. Okay, so once they mix it in the molten stage, so that means the new metal that we will get is it contains chromium and nickel inside it, so we need not give them an extra coating of zinc or chromium or nickel. Okay, so chromium and nickel is already present inside the steel, stainless steel, so rusting will not occur rapidly. Okay, so rusting will take long time. So due to this, stainless steel you can use it in water and keep it for longer time in open, still it will not rust. Why? Because it contains a good amount of carbon, chromium and nickel along with iron. So iron is not present alone, chromium and nickel is also present in it. Okay, so now I am using a term here, alloy. So what is alloy? So alloy is nothing but it is a solid mixture, that is it is a mixture of metal or a mixture of a metal and other element. Okay, so alloy can be a mixture of metal, that is more than one metal may be mixed together to form a new substance, so that is known as alloy. Or it may be where a metal is mixed with a non-metallic object like carbon, like chlorine, like fluorine. So if a metal is mixed with a non-metallic object and to form a new substance, so these are also known as alloy. So alloy is a mixture of metal. Okay, so simply you can remember what is alloy. Alloy is a solid mixture, that is a mixture of metal or a mixture of metal and a non-metal which will give you a solid substance. So these are known as alloy. Okay, so next we have to look at a process, okay, which is known as crystallization. And remember that crystallization process is not a chemical sense, okay, it is a physical sense. Okay, remember this, crystallization process is a physical change. Why crystallization process is required? Crystallization process is required to purify an object. Okay, if you want to get purified object, okay, then this process of crystallization is used. So you have looked at sugar crystals, or you have looked on, if you look at a single piece of sugar or a single piece of salt, you will see that they have a fixed cube-like shape. Okay, so they will have 6 faces. Yes, they will have edges, they will have corner. So these things which have a regular shape. Okay, so that means they have a fixed type of shape. So such things are known as crystals. Okay, so here you can already see I have given you here the picture. So these are sugar crystals. So what you can see, so these are almost like cubes. Yes, so they are having, every crystal they have a similar shape. Okay, so size may be different, so size may be smaller or bigger, but their shape is same. Yes, you can see this one and this one, they have same shape. This one, they have same shape. So that means if a substance if the substance is having a regular shape, then we can say that those substance exists as crystal. So now what is crystallization? So crystallization is the process of obtaining crystal from a soluble substance, crystals of a soluble substance from its hot saturated solution. That is, crystallization is the process from which we can get the crystal of a substance from its hot saturated solution. So now the question is, what is saturated solution? So saturated solution means, suppose if you are making a solution, that means if you have water and there you are adding a solid substance. Suppose you are adding sugar, so you have used 1 spoon of sugar, 2 spoon of sugar, 3 spoon of sugar, you are dissolving it. Okay, so that is, all the sugar gets dissolved in it and disappears. So you keep on adding sugar, so at a moment of time you will see that even if you mix it thoroughly, you will see that some sugar crystals will be left at the bottom of the glass. Okay, so after a point of time you will see that even you mix it, rapidly or thoroughly, you will see that some sugar crystal will be falling below or falling at the bottom of the glass. So that means the solution of a substance where no more substance can be again added, okay, or can be dissolved. That means only a fixed amount of substance can be dissolved in a solution, okay. So at a point where the saturation level is achieved, you will see that even if you add more of the substance, you cannot dissolve it, okay. So a solution of a substance where the substance is dissolved means you have already dissolved some amount of the substance in the solution, and after that even if you try to add more substance, you cannot dissolve it. So such solutions are known as saturated solution, okay. So for making the crystallization process work, you have to make the solution of the substance first saturated. That means you have to add the substance to such an extent that at a point of time you will observe that if you keep on adding any other keep on adding the same substance. Suppose you are making a saturated solution of sugar. So if you are adding sugar, you are going on adding sugar. So at a point of time you will observe that even if you add more sugar and even if you mix it, you will see that sugar will not dissolve. So at that point of time the solution is called as saturated solution, okay. So for crystallization process to work, you need a saturated solution, and I have already told that crystallization is a physical change, and we know that in physical sense no new substance is formed, okay, and only there is a change in state. That is, from liquid state we will get a solid substance, okay. So we will only see that there is a change in state. From liquid solution we will get a solid crystal. And I have already told why crystallization is used. Crystallization is used because it gives us a pure substance from a naturally occurring impure substance. That is, if the substance is obtained from nature, so it will be mixed with some impurities, okay. So to remove these impurities, we use the process of crystallization, okay. So I have explained you what is saturated solution. So I think it is clear, but even though if you have some doubt, you can ask me, okay. So this is very simple thing. So if you can do it in your home. Take a glass of water, mix 1 spoon of sugar, dissolve it, again mix 1 spoon of sugar, dissolve it, again mix 1 spoon of sugar, dissolve it, keep on adding sugar and try to dissolve it. So after some point of time you will see that even you keep on adding sugar to the solution, and if you are trying to dissolve it, but the sugar will settle at the bottom, it will not dissolve, okay. So that means every solution has a fixed capacity to dissolve a fixed amount of substance, okay. So if you are adding more substance than the capacity of the solution, then you will see that the substances are settling at the bottom. So at that condition the solution is said to be saturated solution. So we need in your book, in your syllabus, we need the process of crystallization of copper sulphate, okay. So copper sulphate I have already discussed with you what is copper sulphate. So copper sulphate, the formula of copper sulphate is CuSO4. Yes, CuSO4. So this is formula of copper sulphate. Yes, and I have already told you that when you make copper sulphate solution, that is by dissolving copper sulphate, which is blue in color, in water, we will get a blue color solution, okay. So here we are making a copper sulphate solution, okay. So how we are making? We are taking water in a beaker, okay, and we will heat it, okay. So then water will start boiling. So once the water start boiling or its temperature increases up to 70 or 80 degrees Celsius, what we can do? We can add copper sulphate, okay. So we will add slowly some amount of copper sulphate. So once you added copper sulphate, you dissolve it using a glass rod, okay. So what is a glass rod? A rod made up of glass is known as glass rod. So by that you can mix the copper sulphate solution so that the copper sulphate that you have added to the water, it dissolves. Again you will add copper sulphate to it, again you will dissolve it, again you will add copper sulphate, you will dissolve it. So we will keep on adding copper sulphate to the solution and dissolving it unless we get a saturated solution. That means at a point of time you will see that even if you add more amount of copper sulphate, you cannot dissolve it, it will settle at the bottom. So once that condition is reached, you will know that you have made a saturated solution. Okay, so after you can know that you have made a saturated solution, stop adding copper sulfate solution. Okay, and try to dissolve the remaining copper sulfate in the solution. Okay, so once you have got the saturated solution, you let the solution be heated for some more time. Okay, and after that what you do, you put the flame off, that is we'll stop heating it. Okay, we'll switch off the flame. Okay, and what we'll do, we'll cover the beaker with a watch glass or with any solid matter. Okay, suppose cardboard, okay, or any flat dish. So best thing is to use a watch glass. Okay, so that no copper sulfate solution or vapor can go away or escape away from the beaker. So cover the beaker and switch off the flame. Okay, and do not touch the beaker. Leave it for 1 or 2 days. Okay, you leave it to cool down. Okay, and do not disturb the beaker. Do not touch the beaker. If the solution gets disturbed, if you touch it, the solution will shake, and then your whole process will go in vain. That is, you will not get the result. You will not get the crystals. Okay, so once you have switched off the flame and you have covered the beaker, do not touch the beaker again for 1 or 2 days. Okay, so after 24 hours or 1 day, what we will see that, so this is the solution of copper sulfate, saturated solution of copper sulfate, which is allowed to cool. That is, once you got the saturated solution, you have switched off the flame and you have allowed to cool. Okay, and after some time, okay, so about 20 hours or 24 hours, you will see that some solid pieces, okay, so some pieces of solid is floating at the surface and some are settling at the bottom of the beaker where you kept it. Okay, so some solid pieces, blue colored solid pieces will be present at the bottom of the beaker or at the solution. Okay, or in the solution. So these solid pieces which are having a regular shape, yes, some diamond like shape, yes, so small pieces are also present. So these are the crystal of copper sulfate. Okay, so what we did, we first made a saturated solution by boiling water, and then we kept on adding copper sulfate. We got a saturated solution, and as soon as we got the saturated solution, we will switch off the flame and we will allow the copper sulfate solution to cool down, and we will cover it. Okay, and we will leave it undisturbed for 24 hours or 1 day, and after 1 day we will try to observe the solution. Then we will see that some solid substances or some solid crystals are present in the solution. Okay, so these crystals are of copper sulfate crystals. These are of copper sulfate. Okay, these are copper sulfate crystals, blue colored crystals. Okay, so what you do, you have to filter it and we have to leave these crystals to dry. Once this crystal dry, you can touch them, and you can see that this feels like those sugar or sugar crystals. Okay, so that is why we call them as crystals, because they are having a regular shape. Okay, so this is how you obtain crystals of copper sulfate. Okay, and most of the substances whose crystallization is possible, so this method is only used, that is, you make a saturated solution and then you heat it and then you cool them, and as soon as the substance starts cooling, they form crystal of the pure substance. Okay, so this is how crystallization works. So this is the crystallization of copper sulfate, which is important for your exam also. Okay, so with this crystallization of copper sulfate, this chapter also ends. This physical and chemical chapter comes to an end. Okay, so after this, on my next class, I will be sharing the question answers. Okay, and then similar to the previous chapter, I will be giving you homeworks, and then you have to submit me. Okay, and you can also ask me if you have any doubt regarding this chapter or the previous chapter, and then we will proceed to our next chapter. Okay, so again, yes, as I say in all my videos, so please subscribe the channel so that I can make more videos on topics related to your course, and also some question answers which are not present in the exercises, that is question answers which are important uh, for your exams, that I will be uh, sharing or discussing in my YouTube channel. So you can have a look at it to understand the concepts more clearly. Okay, and if you are also giving some competitive exams like some scholarship exam or some merit exam, so this might be also helpful for you. Okay, so to get the notification of those videos on possible questions and their answers, so please subscribe the channel. Okay, so when you subscribe the channel, I will also be motivated to make more nice videos. Okay, so thank you.